In today's video, I'm returning to the game I made in 48 hours, as it needs a new face and a new coat of paint. But I'm only giving myself 24 hours to improve it. So let's get right into it. So, opening up the project for the first time in at least a year now, I'm seeing a lot of cutscenes and all that sort of stuff. So the first thing I think I'm going to do is just completely clear this out, wipe the project to a point where I've still got the core features of everything. However, it's just a completely fresh slate and I can work on it from there. So after doing that, we are left with the main menu options and the credits. And to be honest, they're not looking too bad. You know, you got the controls options, all the basic stuff that you need for a main menu. However, I feel like we can make this look a bit nicer, clean it up a bit, and just really put the project on the right track to being a good game, rather than some game some 16-year-old made, and actually make it something that's gonna be playable and what make people want to play it in the future. So to do this, I quickly took some assets from either other projects or old unfinished projects that I was never actually going to complete, plopped them in here, and just completely revamped the main menu screen. I haven't actually done any code yet, that's what I'll be doing next, but I'm really happy with the way this looks, and it's a lot cleaner and more professional than what it previously looked like. So I quickly whipped up a simple script for the options menu, the game starting, and the quit. Really simple script, I use it for all my games. I just quickly stick in a integer to show which scene I'm switching to in the build settings, and then make a quick little scene switcher so when you press the buttons on the panel, then it will just switch the scene to whichever scene I've selected, and obviously I put those numbers in the inspector in Unity. After finishing up the main menu controls, I finished up making sure they all went to the right places by playtesting the game and making sure all the buttons actually went to where I wanted them to go. And then I moved on to making the music and graphic actual settings themselves, rather than just the buttons and the controls for the buttons. And I did this really easily with some player prefs, and also using the SFX mixers, which was, or not just the SFX mixers, but all three mixers, and I put them in one group under the master mixer, which means basically if you change the main volume, it will lower all of it, like you would normally in any game. And then the SFX only does the SFX, and the music only does the music, which was just a couple of floats to say what the sliders and the volume itself actually does, and then using a bit of maths, it works it all out for me, and then puts it in and changes the volume itself in game. After completely finishing off the main menu, I moved on to making the main game and opened up the actual scene for the main game itself, ready to make the scene and player controller and all the little bits that will actually be playable within the game. So after spending some time importing assets into the actual project itself and working on the scene, I've come out to this outcome, which I think is looking 10 times better than it previously did. It's a lot less basically childish pixels, in my opinion, because the last set assets I used was very basic and didn't really have any liveliness to it, and so this one I feel is a lot more inviting to play the game and looks a lot cleaner and nicer for the scene. I may end up changing the cave sides background because right now I'm just using a basic asset, which I'm going to be honest does not look amazing, but it looks good enough for what I need right now, so I'm happy with it. And now it is time to finally get onto the actual main character and all of the death, the ways of dying, and all of that sort of stuff. So let's get straight into that. After finishing up making the tile set, I decided to get on with the player controller, which, to be honest, for this project is probably a bit extensive. I made sure it had coyote time and everything like that, and also a wall jump just in case I had any levels where you go more vertical and maybe they're on the left and the right hand side of the screen. However, for the project as it is right now, I'm really happy with it, and it's looking good. The character works. I know he looks the same in this, but he does change just due to animations and things like that when you start playing the game. That's just so I can see where they are in both scenes. And yeah, I'm really happy with the way it's looking. We have pretty much any helpful code that will make it quality of life better in this, with coyote time, jump buffer, everything like that. It's all in here the flip's working, I've tested the character controller, it's completely working, and we're ready to move on to making the player def. Spikes, animation, and code. So I finally got the code for the spikes working with really quick code where anything that is an obstacle in the scene or tagged as an obstacle in the scene will just completely reset the scene. So it's like a one life type game, start to finish. And then once I did that, I decided to make some extra scenes you can see on the right there. However, I realized there was no way I could make it so the camera would follow. Well, I could make it so the camera followed along. However, it would look a bit dodgy due to the characters having desync at some points in the game, due to me wanting to them have to do puzzles for each other. And so the way I fixed this was basically making a whole new camera and having it on the next screen, so it would go from screen to screen, and written a piece of code here so that when you switch from one scene to the other, if the player collides with the scene switcher, which is this little bar here, then it will switch the screen. However, the next thing I'm going to do is hopefully get some code in so that when one character passes over that line, the other guy gets teleported over there, so there's no desync going on from one screen to the other. However, I may end up playing around with that, because I feel like the idea of you have to make sure both are at the end of the screen before you move on would be a cool idea. So that's what I'm going to play around with next. However, I also need to make some more levels, as we haven't got a lot right now, and maybe some new obstacles, because that would bring a new play style to the game, where you have to think about not just the spikes and how you're jumping, but also moving objects. So maybe like a slime moving around the screen or something like that. So after making the game a little bit longer and actually adding some more levels or screens, I guess we'll call them, to the game, I realized the top half and the bottom half of the world was very bare compared to the previous game where we had trees and rocks. So I feel like that's what I want to really focus in on and add into the game next, as that will bring more life to the scene. So we're going to focus on that now. After spending some time working on the decorations of the scene, I'm quite happy with the way it's ended up looking. I think the idea of the caves being a bit more barren than the above ground adds a nice contrast to which world is nicer. And obviously, it also makes it look more different and has a easier distinction due to the fact that one is very barren and one is very lively and open and happy. And so I feel like that also adds to the game with the idea of it being two different variations of the same place, and also allows the mind to more easily understand the fact that the world is different in its own way, which is the main concept of the game. Like, the world is different, the terrains are going to be different between the different areas. It will be similar, but different in the way that even here, you can see there's different spikes in different spots, and also even the landmass itself is different. There's still a landmass there, but it's a different landmass, which I really like, and it will make it easier on the human brain to understand that these are different places. However, they may look similar or even the same at some points throughout the game. Now, the next thing I wanted to work on is definitely getting, as I said before, a slime in here. I'm thinking of putting it up here where there's not much going on the above ground, or maybe here, whereas there's a lot going on in the below ground. And so that's what I'm going to work on next, and I'm probably going to use A-star pathfinding for this. However, I might try coding it myself, but let's get into that. So after finishing off the code for the slimes, which is really easy, it was just a simple script to say go between point A and B, and at this certain speed, which you can see from the speed modifier up here, which you select in the inspector. I then made sure it flipped, so when you get to the other end of the A and B points, if you hit B, you flip around to go back towards A, hit A, go back towards B. And then I started making some more levels, so I've got a whole entire scene now full of levels, which I'm going to probably add a few more slimes in some of these open bits, like here, I feel like could do with a slime. And then, yeah, that should be the game done, and all we got to do is add an endpoint. However, we are running out of time. I think we're down to our last hour or so, so we've really got to lock in and get this finished. So let's get into it. In the final hour I had on the project, I quickly set up a win box, which just switches to the win screen, which I am going to keep a secret for those who do feel like they want to play the game. I then added some more slimes, fixed up the scene a bit, made sure it was playable, did some playtests, got some friends to playtest the game, and it was done. So with this project overall, I'm really happy with the way it went. I mean, for 24 hours work, it doesn't look like a lot, but it is a lot bigger than it looks. It's about 10 to 15 minutes of playtime, which is already longer than the previous version of the game. As you can see from the scene list, it is so much smaller, and even the script list is only, 7 scripts? So I am actually really happy with the way this game has turned out. I think in the past year that I've been focusing on like learning game design and really getting to know how to code, I think I've improved quite a lot, and that is shown in this piece of work. And yeah, I think if I am going to continue on this project, I'll probably, off YouTube videos and things like that, work on it more to make more levels, maybe some vertical levels, maybe some buttons where each other has to press, things like that. Because admittedly, in 24 hours, you can't get an amazingly big amount done. It's only 24 hours, it's one day. And those 24 hours, I also had to eat and, sleep and things like that. And so I feel like if I did have a full actual 24 hours on this project, I could have added some more buttons and maybe some gates that you had to get through, a bit like The Dark. If you guys want to check that out, there will be a link to its itch page down below. I'll also be leaving a link to this itch page on my main itch page. And also the legacy version. So I'll leave the legacy version up if you guys do feel like you want to go play the other game and then play this, or maybe the other way around, just to see how much I've improved. And please do show me your support in the Discord server. I'll leave a link to that in the description as well. And tell me if you think this is better or the old game's better. But I really hope to enjoy this video. I'll be hopefully making another video very soon, most likely on The Dark, and I will see you all in the next one.